Alright, so welcome once again here to the woods of Pennsylvania. Doing another one of my edible and medicinal plants here in Pennsylvania. And one I'm looking for in particular today is yarrow. It's the plant that years ago when I was back in high school, maybe junior high, that first got me interested in what wild plants can do, medicinally and edible wise. And that is yarrow. I saw some back in the trail earlier there. I'm trying to walk a little bit further down away from some of the traffic noise to find another patch of it down here. Has some cool properties that actually work. It was the plant, like I said. You read about plants being medicinal and stuff, but sometimes you think it's just folklore. But I tried yarrow, like I said, back when I was in high school, because I was supposed to stop bleeding. I cut myself really bad one day, and I saw some yarrow, and I tried it, and it worked just like that. It was amazing. So that's what got me. It's the plant that got me started on this particular interest in my life. So hopefully we'll see some more down the trail here. All right, up ahead I do believe we have some of our yarrow. I'm seeing some white up here. Looks like it's on both sides of the trail here, but right here, here's a good patch right here. Here we go. This is yarrow. Of course, the leaves have this almost real delicate look, like delicate ferns. Here's the flower. All right, well, I'm gonna take some pictures of this, and then we'll find a place to sit down and talk about this as well. It grows pretty common in a lot of areas. You can see it all along the trail here, going up that way, because I think that's some other flower up there as well. Fleabane, maybe. All right, but there it is. So I did find a nice little place to sit here in the shade. Once again, we are talking about yarrow. And once again, here's what the plant looks like for the flower. And yes, I did pick some, bring it out here. It's quite common. It's also an introduced species. It's considered to be invasive in some areas, so picking it is just fine. It's not a rare wildflower that you shouldn't pick. Like I said earlier, this is the wild flower that did start it for me when it comes to medicinal plants. And this is the wild variety. There are cultivated species. You can find this in pink and yellow colors as well. Under the farm that I grew on, in the one front flower bed, we had a whole patch of the pink variety. I think I had some yellow variety too out in the garden. I forget. Once again, the leaves have that really delicate look to them, unmistakable look. Because the flowers can be confused for other wildflowers as well. There's also actually a strong, pretty pungent smell to it as well. And its main quality is it acts as an astringent. When you use this, when you take the leaves, a bundle of the leaves, you crush it up with your fingers into like a little poultice. Sorry, I'm getting bit there. You crush it into a little poultice and put it on a wound. It's supposed to stop the bleeding like immediately. Of course, like I said earlier, I didn't always know what to believe about those things. Like, those are just old wives' tales. But I tried it once. Like, I think I was using like a little handsaw, and I was pruning an apple tree, I think, back when I was in high school, and I sliced my finger open, my thumb, I believe, and it was a cut that was like dripping blood. So I tried. There was some yarrow growing right nearby, and picked some, crushed the leaves into like a nice little mushy mess, plopped it on. It stung a bit, but the bleeding stopped just like that. It shrinks the blood vessels and keeps them from bleeding. And because of that property, it has a ton of other common names. I have one of my original notebooks I made, I don't know, years ago. I started writing stuff down about medicinal and edible plants, and kind of discovered this recently again. But anyway, yarrow is the first plant I ever wrote about back, who knows, maybe 15 years ago, I don't know. Anyway, it was a while ago. But some of the other common names, because of its ability to stop bleeding, soldier's woundwort, and knight's milfoil, both refer to battles, because a lot of times over in Europe, this plant comes from Europe, after a big battle, there'd be lots of wounded men who were in danger of bleeding to death if those wounds weren't staunched or kept from bleeding. So they would bring wagon loads of yarrow to the aftermath of the battle site and apply it to the soldiers' wounds to stop the bleeding. So soldier's woundwort, knight's milfoil, milfoil comes from another name we'll talk about. Nosebleed, carpenter's weed, because if you're a carpenter, you're probably going to cut yourself. Bloodwort, staunch weed, and sanguinary. Yeah, just got distracted. Someone rode their bike past. Yeah, sanguinary means blood in Latin. And sometimes it gets called devil's nettle and devil's plaything because it works. It's almost like magic. So it's like you're dealing with, you know, something evil. Unfortunately, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. You know, back in the day, it's unfortunate because, you know, wild medicinal plants can heal people. So a woman or a man who would go out in the woods and collect herbs and heal people was looked upon, even though they healed people, they were looked upon with suspicion, like a witch or something, and they would, you know, burn them. But it's like, yeah, it's like, anyway, it's kind of sad sometimes how, you know, it's not magic, it's just what these wild plants can do for you. Of course, here is its scientific name, Achillea millefolium. Of course, millefolium, folium refers to leaves, and milli kind of means many, like millions. That's where that word knight's milfoil came from. It just refers to the foliage, that really fine look to it, like thousands of little leaflets attached to that little stalk. So that's where millefolium comes from. Achillea refers to Achilles from Greek mythology. I'm not sure why he's associated with the Yarrow. Maybe because it has healing properties. Not quite sure about that one. But yeah, Achillea millefolium. And like I said, there are different varieties as well, like the pink and the yellow. And there is a ton of other uses for it as well. One of the interesting things is it's supposed to help cure baldness. I think you can actually find shampoo. Like if you go on Amazon and type in Yarrow shampoo, you'll actually find shampoo made with Yarrow that's in it. It's supposed to help stimulate hair growth. I won't take my hat off, but maybe I should try that. Anyway, we'll let that go. I've never bought any. Most of that hair growth stuff is pretty much garbage anyway, as far as I'm concerned. But then again, maybe I shouldn't say that, because remember I talked how Yarrow was one of the first plants I used because I read it could stop bleeding. I didn't necessarily believe that, but I tried it and I did. So maybe I shouldn't make fun of its properties, to, you know, to cure baldness. You know, maybe I should try it. I'm not completely bald, but anyway, what do you call it? Receding hairline. Anyway, moving on to some other properties. Once again, I'm looking at my old list here. Some neat things. You can learn some new words. It's a carminative, which means it prevents gas, or it can help with flatulence if you're farting a lot. I guess you could make yarrow tea or drink some yarrow, or eat some yarrow, I guess I should say. It's not poisonous, but I doubt it tastes good. Yeah, it cures a lot of things, you know, well, supposedly cures a lot of things. Remember, once again, as a disclaimer, you know, not all these uses are proven, and if you do use wild herbs and plants, you always need to be careful and make sure you do your own research first. But because of that smell, like I mentioned earlier, it is an antiseptic. It smells, you know, it has a medicinally smell to it, pretty strong. It's also been used to treat intestinal worms as well. But once again, like I say, if you are going to use it, you know, make sure I don't go over all that here, how to prepare the stuff. You know, if you choose to do that, you can look up that stuff yourself, but just be careful. You know, and you know, these plants can be beneficial, but if you use them in the wrong way, they can also be harmful as well. So just be careful with that. And there's a whole other list of medicinal purposes. You know, fevers and cramps and colds and rheumatism and, you know, hemorrhages and anything to do with bleeding. It's supposed to help for. Some of that stuff might be true, some of it's not, probably, but just a whole variety of things. Like I said, because of so many healing properties that it supposedly has back in the day, that's why it got names like devil's plaything or devil's nettle, because anything that could do that much healing, you know, has to be, you know, something magical or evil about it. But anyway. And personally, the only thing I have tried it for is for bleeding. I've used it multiple times for wounds. It does sting a little bit. If you have a really heavily bleeding wound, you might want to try and apply that poultice twice. But it is neat. It just stops the bleeding. Like I said, it does sting, but it's amazing. It might stain your wound a little bit green, but that's okay. You know, someone might look at that green and think it's infected, but it's just from the yarrow, actually. I haven't tried it for any other uses yet. I've never made a tea or anything from it. You know, maybe I'll try that someday. If you're looking for it, it does start blooming here in June and through July, maybe into August. And you can find it It's not grown in the woods. I'm sitting here in the woods right now, but it grows in more open areas, sunny areas, like along the side of the road or in fields. It can be a weed in your garden as well. It grows in more in those open habitat type area. Habitat, if I can talk right, habitat areas. But that is yarrow, one of my favorite plants, because like I said, it's what introduced me to a love of, you know, edible and medicinal plants. So there you go. And I did not cover all the uses. Like I said, there's a ton of them. So it's a very interesting plant. All right, I'm actually out looking for some other wildflowers or plants to do some videos on as well, so I'll see you in some other videos. All right, thanks for watching.